TIAA is on a mission. Why? Because 54% of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So in collaboration with big-name artists like Wyclef Jean, TIAA released Paper Right, new music inspiring a new financial future. With 100% of streaming sales going to a nonprofit that teaches students how to invest. Stream Paper Right now and help close the gap.
Hi, I'm your inner dream monologue, and you're fast asleep, so I'll be quick. Great job using the Colgate Optic White Overnight Teeth Whitening Pen before bed. When used as directed, it gives you a visibly whiter smile in just 7 days. So while I fly and talk to animals, you're removing teeth stains with ease. Sweet dreams. And when you wake up, keep on living life to the brightest. Colgate Optic White. Find it at all major retailers.
Next week on U62, he's back. And this time, he's mad. Gandhi II. No more Mr. Passive Resistance. He's out to kick some butt. This is one bad mother you don't want to mess with.
Don't move, slang ball.
He's a one-man wrecking crew. But he also knows how to party.
Give me a steak, medium rare. Hey, Baldy!
There is only one law. His law. Gandhi II.
Matt, this is one of the strangest things we're ever going to have to record, I think. Stranger than George of the Jungle. Even stranger than some of the future things that we have to talk about on this episode, I think, is Gandhi II.
Yeah. He's back.
So this album, we didn't really tackle this last week because we had a guest. UHF, the original motion picture soundtrack and other stuff is the full official name of this album.
Yes.
It's notable for being Al's first and only studio album that dabbles in the art of sketch comedy. First of them being Gandhi II. It reimagines Gandhi as the hero of a blaxploitation style sequel to Gandhi while simultaneously spoofing the theme and promos for the film Shaft. It was recorded during the third recording session of this album along with Fun Zone. And big shout out needs to go out to Jim Rose, who is the voice of the announcer throughout this ad.
Yeah, I mean, we could also throw in a... this album has... So this is not an instrumental. Because Fun Zone is an instrumental, so Al's voice is not on it. But Al's voice is also not on this track. I don't think he does any of those, because there's a couple little like interstitial yelling. Like he's responsible for the music on this track, but the narration is not Al.
I'm kind of perplexed by this. And I think the problem is there's another one of these, right? So a couple weeks ago we did the commentary track for UHF, and there's all these like fun little commercial breaks and movie parodies and whatnot. The other one on this album, I think, translates to an audio format in a way that still kind of makes sense. So much of this is based on a visual gag. Like, I don't understand why you would even put this on the album, because it doesn't really translate audio-wise well at all to me.
Yeah, well, okay, I agree with you, but also then the question becomes, why is this on the record, but not the Conan the Librarian bit?
I almost feel like the Conan the Librarian would translate funnier into audio than Gandhi, because we're just sitting here hearing the sound effects of fighting.
I know. And I mean, don't get me wrong, because I do enjoy it. And I mean, okay, so I think the presumption here is that, and this is where the soundtrack gets really odd, because there's most of this soundtrack is not in the movie.
Yeah, this is what the other stuff in the title comes from. Yeah.
And we're going to get to this next week with Attack of the Radioactive Hamsters from a Planet Near Mars, where I cannot even find, I don't know if that was ever intended to be in this movie, or if it was just at a certain point they were like, we got to bulk this out because there's not enough material.
It would have been
in a
an
soundtrack.
EP. It would have literally been 4 or 5 songs.
Yes,
One of which being "Let Me Be Your Hog," which was
exactly, yeah.
From what I understand, we'll dive into this in a few weeks, but from what I understand, "Let Me Be Your Hog" was like kind of created at the last second when the song that they originally wanted to be playing on the radio was too expensive.
Yeah.
So like we're looking at if they had just released this as a genuine soundtrack and you remove the sketches and you're just sticking with the music created for the movie. You've got Money for Nothing, the UHF theme song, Fun Zone, and Let Me Be Your Hog. That is a 12-minute long EP.
I mean, yeah, and they must have been thinking, like, we need a soundtrack for this movie. Like, people are watching this movie because they know Al, presumably. And the soundtrack, I mean, the whole thing, as we have discussed and we will continue to discuss, the whole thing did not pan out well for Al or Orion Pictures or anybody. But they must have thought, like, oh, well, at the very least, we're going to sell a bunch of records. Yeah. And so they needed a full soundtrack. The only thing I could think of for Conan the Librarian, even the, like...
There's Plots
even
Are Us. Like...
There's that great, like, sort of musical montage of the upcoming shows on U62 that goes through all of the... upcoming like Celebrity Mud Wrestling and all that stuff. That would have worked as a sketch. And even it's instrumental, but even the music under the Rambo sketch could have been added as additional movie, and
I would have even taken Town Talk. I would have taken Town Talk as an audio clip.
Yeah, sure.
Over Gandhi II. I think Gandhi II is quite literally the worst sketch that you could have plucked out of the movie and been like...
For audio purposes.
Yeah, for audio
You're
purposes.
Probably right, yeah. I mean, and the only other thing I could think was, we had talked before, and one of our listeners mentioned this in our mailbag episode, that the score for this movie is credited to someone named John Duprez. And I wonder if the reason why certain things were omitted, maybe John Duprez did some of that music. Maybe he did some of the Conan the Librarian stuff. Maybe he did... maybe they wanted to keep it Al focused, so that's the reason why. Because our listener was speculating. I'm sorry, I forgot the name, but speculating that maybe some of this music was not actually written by Al and was written by John Duprez. I don't think that's the case. I do think Al is credited. I mean, in my experience in this world, there's no way Al is stealing the writing credit for a piece of music like this. I think if anything, it would point me more towards the idea of if they were excluding anything that Al didn't write.
So
that would make more sense.
Here's my other theory.
Yeah.
The other theory that I have is that the 2 sketches that they specifically went with, Gandhi II and Spatula City, involve both some created background noise, like background audio, and voiceover. And I wonder, because it literally says this was recorded during the 4th session. So I'm wondering if it was literally that they were in the studio and they created the sounds of this and then shot the footage to match what they had already created in the studio. And then maybe they pulled out like maybe like the punches and stuff weren't originally in there and that was added.
Right.
But I'm wondering if the music and the voiceover was all done in the studio, and then because that was created in a studio to be inserted into the movie, they treated that differently than some of the other stuff that we're talking about, where it's like the montage of all the different shows, where that's like probably just they shot that stuff and then we're like, oh, we need to throw something in here.
Right.
No,
maybe you're right. Maybe they were at a point where they needed to. So again, it's so interesting to think about. This is the only record we're ever going to be able to speculate like this about, like what the sequence of events was and how this led to exist. Because I was just going to say maybe this was something that they were like, oh, we need some more. We need to bulk out this movie, and it's a great premise to bulk out because you can just easily add a sketch and call it a TV show from the UHF station, and then you've got everything you know what I mean? There's no limit to what you could add from the sketch side of things. But this seems like not an afterthought, Because this definitely was not like a quick. They must have gone to some effort to shoot the Gandhi II footage.
Yes.
For the movie. I'm fascinated that this was shot late. Was recorded late. Excuse me. And maybe that was just that could have just been the schedule of recording that they had. I mean, they might have planned it from the jump and just were like, oh, we got to do this at the end.
The other thing that's weird to me is that I genuinely don't even think we need this sketch at all.
Hi, I'm your inner dream monologue, and you're fast asleep, so I'll be quick. Great job using the Colgate Optic White Overnight Teeth Whitening Pen before bed. When used as directed, it gives you a visibly whiter smile in just 7 days. So while I fly and talk to animals, you're removing teeth stains with ease. Sweet dreams. And when you wake up, keep on living life to the brightest. Colgate Optic White. Find it at all major retailers.
You've been lost in the woods for hours now, stumbling around in the dark. You come around the bend and see 2 people roasting marshmallows over a roaring fire. They see you coming into the clearing and gesture over to pull up a log. Welcome to Campfire Ashes. I'm Paul.
And I'm Jess. Join us as we tell each other our originally written spooky stories around the campfire and then dive into the lore and legends that inspired them. Is it something that goes bump in the night? Is it something menacing lurking past the tree line? Or is it just weird and otherworldly? You'll find it here on Campfire Ashes.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, or right here on the Geekscape Network.
Like, this is a 13-track album, which is rare for Al. It's usually 10 or 12 tracks.
Yeah.
Right? So we're 1 track longer than normal. And the other, what I guess we would classify as, like, the odd men out on this album. You've got Let Me Be Your Hog, Spatula City, and Fun Zone. They're all kind of clustered close together, and Gandhi's just, like, floating out there at as the second track to the album.
Track 2. No, we go right in to Gandhi II. And I mean, so I'm inclined, if we're talking about the record, you're right. I don't think it adds a ton, but at the same time, I get it. And there's a part of me that actually wishes they just added more of these. I wish that Conan was there. I wish that these little sketches were interspersed. You know, it's funny, when I was reading about this, a comparison was made, I think, by Nathan Rabin, that the little interstitial sketches here reminded him of a Quentin Tarantino soundtrack.
Yes. No, I mean, like...
Which is great. I mean, that's an incredible reference to make, and I just wish that he had leaned into it more, like
it almost
Quentin
would make more sense for
soundtracks.
all of them to be here than just these 2. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. That's my point. Like, I don't know why. What made them pick just these 2?
I think you either go all in, or you just do 1. You know what I mean? Like, but picking 2 at random feels really strange. Because if it was, I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong here, right? But I feel like if it was just Spatula City, just in the middle of the album, you could be like, all right. You know, like, you wouldn't be like, why only Spatula City? You'd be like, okay, this makes sense that they just, like, pluck this one random sketch
on future
and drop
records. We get the quick out. I mean, like, to be honest, Spatula City could occupy a space similar to, like, we talked, like, Twister, a very short song, kind of like in the middle of a record. Later on, he'll do, like, Harvey the Wonder Hamster, these little things that can come in as a short sort of bit. He doesn't do it very often, but you're right, there is some of that. So it's possible. I do agree with you. If it were me making this thing, I would have wanted it longer. I would have wanted more of those interstitial things in here to highlight the soundtrack, because it's almost like they couldn't make up their minds. Like, this is dangerously close to being just a Weird Al record that didn't need to have any connection to the film at all. If you cut Spatula City and you cut Gandhi II, this just plays like a record.
Yeah, it's just
certainly doesn't feel like a soundtrack.
No, I agree. Something that I wanted to also talk about while we're recording this episode is season 2 of Clone High just wrapped up on Max. And I don't know. There in my brain, I'm doing this direct connection of, like, man, there is a long history of making jokes about Gandhi that don't age great. Okay. Case in point, we talked about it briefly when we recorded our episode, our commentary track, but, like, you can't ignore the scene in the movie where the Gandhi II segment comes from, and It's undeniable. It's brownface. Like there is brownface happening there.
Played by Jay Levy, who is Al's manager and the director of this film.
And the director of the film. And then
I don't have this stat handy, but I think I looked this up when we were doing the UHF episode itself, that was actually, he did that because they could not find anyone to do it. Mm-hmm. And it was sort of a last minute, like, oh, we don't have anyone to play Gandhi. He was like, I'll do it. And of course, again, not to forgive too much, but 1989 was a very different time. People certainly did not think about these sorts of things. And in the exact same way, you know, a white person taking a role like this and putting on brown face. And I mean, certainly it would not be if Al made the movie today.
Yeah,
it would not happen like that.
But you know, in my brain there is this direct line to Clone High getting a second season after almost 20 years, and them essentially killing off the character of Gandhi because they're like, this character caused us a lot of trouble. Like, this character is why we got canceled. This character is voiced by a white man. Like, there was like a whole lot of strikes. And let me tell you, I love the new season of Clone High. Boy, did I miss Gandhi. Like I think that the idea of taking Gandhi and putting him in a completely opposite role is just funny. You know, taking Gandhi and making him Shaft is very funny.
I was going to say, so now, okay, we've cleared the air. Yes, obviously the brown face element of this is really, really tough, and it's awkward to watch now. Luckily, if you're listening to the album, you don't have to see that. No.
And also this but
you can
Clone
just
High,
envision
taking Gandhi and making him this like hard drinking party animal that wants everybody to love him. Like that juxtaposition is always very, very funny. It is a funny thing.
It is.
What is your so this is a genre that I have only dabbled in. What is your experience with blaxploitation?
I would say that I have mostly dabbled as well. I mean, as it's been pointed out, the most obvious reference for this is Shaft, which I have seen, but of course that's like a very, very notable blaxploitation movie. I've seen a handful of them over the years. You know, it enters the cult territory of things that I was going to say.
I think I've seen more of the bad ones. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
exactly that. Exactly.
Like I've watched like the Dolomite movies, and I've watched like Blackula and Blackenstein. You know what I mean? Like
yes.
Then the Hunch Black from Bloat or Blame for you Simpsons fans out there.
Exactly.
But like, it's not. Probably
Superfly. Sorry, I'm reminding myself looking at a list. Superfly is a great one. There's a movie called Black Caesar that's awesome that James Brown did the soundtrack for. That's why I know that the most.
I mean, I hate to say it because it's a parody, but actually my favorite blaxploitation film is Black Dynamite from about...
Black Dynamite is amazing.
It's incredible.
Because that's one of those things. It is a parody, but it is also just a great blaxploitation movie. Like,
if you're a fan of
really
UHF, it's very similar box being checked with Black Dynamite.
Yes.
So
another really good one I have to shout out, The Last Dragon. Have you ever seen The Last Dragon?
Oh my God, The Last Dragon's phenomenal.
That is an incredible, like, talk about something to recommend to listeners. The Last Dragon is a martial arts / blaxploitation movie that was made by Motown Studios. It's like I think it's the only movie that they ever made.
It's the only movie they ever made.
It's
referenced
so good.
It's referenced in like a Busta Rhymes music video.
I think it is, yeah.
He plays Show Enough in one of his music videos.
Right,
right. I mean, the character of Show Enough rules. Every year at San Diego Comic-Con, I see at least one person cosplaying as Show Enough. And I always have to take a picture of them because it's such a beautiful, deep-cut costume. That's funny. You're right. I mean, that is undeniably a blaxploitation film. To me, I just think of it as just an 80s film. Like, I'm like, this is just an 80s film.
It's arguably a little bit more... It's probably you could make the case that it's more of a kung fu karate movie than it is a blaxploitation movie, but it certainly occupies that space.
It's the same thing with I said Black Dynamite, and it also goes with I'm Gonna Get You Sucker from the 80s. Like there are these films that kind of walked that interesting line of pulling from the reference point of the 70s blaxploitation film
exactly
in a more modern way.
And the thing that Al is referencing here that's so great is that a lot of these movies are ridiculous and over the top and just absurd, but wonderful.
They're so
wonderfully
charming.
made. They're so fun to watch. You have a blast doing it, and that's what makes this sketch
work
better than it probably should. Is just the idea of like, you watch this sketch, and again, ignoring any of the problematic elements, watching the video of it, and then even hearing the audio, I guess, to a lesser degree, is like, yeah, I'd watch this.
Yeah.
I'd absolutely watch this.
100%. Obviously, we're not going to do any rankings with this episode, because, I mean, where would you even put something like this?
Yeah, well, yeah, we set this up a little bit in a previous one. It's just to rank this as an original, I feel like it would just by default have to go low, and that doesn't seem fair to it. So I don't. It's not a song; it's a sketch. I'm glad we're talking about it, because I do think it's worth our time, and it's worth our energy. I do think there's moments of it, like, I laugh listening to it every time he does. You hear the guy in the background just go, "Hey, Baldy!"
Yeah.
Like, as if that somehow is the thing that makes him the most mad. Like he is just enraged that someone would call him bald.
I have a lot more to say in a few weeks when we get to Spatula City, but yes, the background voices and noises really make this work. Well, next week, look, this was a short one. We all knew this was going to be a short one. How much time could we possibly fill talking about a minute-long audio sketch that we already discussed on the commentary track
we
episode?
Kind of already did, yeah, exactly. So, again, I mean, just one more like little bit of credit for the musical side of it.
Yes.
If you watch any of the promos or trailers or whatever it is to these movies that we're talking about from that time period, you can appreciate that he absolutely nails the vibe. Like, this is, again, it's a believable... Yeah, you actually could maybe make the case that this is something of a style parody. It's just a style, like, you know, we talked about on, I'm going to tie it to Peter and the Wolf.
Yeah.
We tied to Peter and the Wolf how that was a style parody, just not of a pop song, which is what we're used to hearing from Al. And this is a style parody of a blaxploitation trailer.
Yeah. Similar to Special City is a style parody of like any commercial you would have seen on commercial you would have seen between Al TV episodes when you're watching it on YouTube.
A local commercial from that time period, specifically the 80s. Yeah, again, Spatula City, I feel like, has a few more references we can get into. But yeah, I mean, I do like this. I'm, like I said, I guess I'm on the team of like, I am glad that this is on the record. It is wild to me that it is track 2.
Yeah, there's just a lot of questions. There's
a lot of questions. We don't have all the... It raises many questions that we don't have the answers to. I would love to know. I am... Again, I'm team Conan the Librarian. I want to know why that didn't make the cut, because I feel like that is at least as good as this, if not, as you said, better. I'm surprised that for some reason, I think it would have worked without the visual to the same degree.
I agree. Well, next week, we'll be back with an actual song, and we'll talk about it.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.